So the second thing you need to understand is what is a mistake, or someone called careless mistake. Yeah, it's not about, I suddenly make this careless mistake with no purpose. Everything has a reason. You want, especially in exam, okay? Exam is decided by an examiner, right? Examiner, every single question you're doing, they already planned it. Because when the examiner making the exam, they always are not looking for how good you are. They're only looking for how many bad attitude, how many bad habit do you have that in your mind. So that's why every single marks you lose in exam always has a reason. And always the examiner has set up this trap, whether you realize that or not. So here is the 4 main technique that the examiner will apply to form the exam paper. So one of them is the hidden information. What do you mean by that? Which means, especially for extended response questions, okay? They give you a whole bunch of paragraph, super long one. And then after that, they set up a diagram. So you look at the bunch of paragraph, you don't want to read that. And then you look at the diagram, you start to make assumption. Okay? It's kind of look like this. Or last time I see something similar, so I will use my lifetime knowledge here to apply for it. Then you fall into a trap. Maybe you can do question A, B, C. But once it come up to D and E, you need the information who written on the paragraph, but it's not showing on the diagram. This is what the technique they like to use, hidden information. The second one is called information overload. This is totally opposite. They don't give you a whole bunch of paragraph. They only give you 2 sentences. Inside these 2 sentences, they like put a lot, they chuck a lot of information as much as possible. So once you finish these 2 sentences, or not just finish, the halfway through, you're already lost. So in that time, what do? Some people read it again, they lost, then they just give up. But indeed, you need to understand, okay, too much information. Instead of reading that sentence by sentence, can I write 3 word by 3 word? Still confusing. Can I read 2 word and then stop, and then 2 word again? This is the information overload to make you fall into a trap. Next one is distraction. As I mentioned before, what is distraction is, for example, I write a question about projectics. 9 out of 10 times, we do the same thing. All the textbook questions, we're doing the same thing. So we know that you practice this method a lot. So I purposely write a questions to look very similar to this, but I give you a little bit of extra information to make you to use another method instead. So this is about distraction. So don't use feeling to do math, okay? You always get distracted. And then the last one, there is the mathematical content. So you can see for this seminar, only up to here. Right now, I mentioned about mathematical content because I always believe that math content is not important, okay? Because 80% of you guys, once you finish VCE, all the content you learn in the textbook, you're never going to use for the rest of your life, okay? It's all about logic. Anyway, go back to here, content. For example, log. If you're year 12, you should know what I'm talking about. Before we start, we already know that log, when they got 2 answers, I need to concern. Do I want 2 answers? Because log cannot log anything within the carrier, cannot be negative or 0. Or your final answer is m is less than 2. Is it really only less than 2? Any lower bound? Yeah. Can it be negative? Can it be like decimal? Something like this. Okay. So this is the 4 technique from the examiner. They set up the trap that to make you lose mark, because the examiner is always looking for how bad you are instead of how good you are. And then after these 4 elements, 4 techniques, yourself will also set up a own trap to yourself to make yourself lose mark. One is not reading the questions. Yeah, you already know how to do it, but the question, no trap. The examiner didn't set up any trap. You just don't read it out properly. You didn't answer that properly, then you lose mark. Okay. The second one is your hand cannot control your brain. And yes, you are not reading this wrong. I didn't type this wrong. It's your hand cannot control your brain, which means when you're writing the current step, your brain is thinking about the next few steps. You try to save time. You want to save time. You want to try to make it faster. But indeed, careless mistake comes out because it doesn't match. That will become something like, if I differentiate x to the power 3, then you forgot to copy the power. You forgot to write the power. Or from the first line to the second line, you forgot to copy a 5 or 6. Or 2 plus 3, you give me a 6, something like that. Because you're thinking about something else. You're not on the current step. So this is the 2 trap you set up by yourself to trap yourself. And for the last one, if your hand cannot control your brain, I need to tell you one thing is, what happened, what will lead to the consequences? The consequences, you will see this kind of death code. 313, 515. If you are my students, you already know what I'm talking about. What do you mean by that? Because in exam, it's not about whether you can do it or not. This 313 death code is, think about that. If I spend 3 minutes to attempting a questions, and then for the last step, I come up with an answer, which is not the question asking for. For example, area, I got a negative, yeah? So what you need to do, you need to stop for 1 minute and try to search back which part goes wrong. So 1 minute gone already, and you find that, you say, oh, that I make a stupid mistake. Then what you need to do next, you need to erase whatever you're doing on the 3 minutes and do it again. So one question like that, you got 7 minutes gone already. So 2 questions, 14 minutes. Exam 1, you only got 60 minutes, 1 hour. It's not about do it or not do it, okay? If you have these 40 minutes gone already, which means what? Which means your last page of the exam is going to be empty. So you haven't learned probability yet, but if you have all this bad habit, you don't need to learn probability. I can tell you the last page is going to be empty in your exam. Okay, because this is what happened. And in special, if one questions, you probably like, for example, complex number, differentiate, area, volume, those kind of long algebra things, maybe 515. 5 minutes, algebra, so many steps, you make a mistake. 11 minutes gone for 1 questions. 2 questions like this, yeah, 22 minutes already. 22 minutes, it's like most of half of the exam. Understand this? So that's why every time when we mark the exam paper, when you see the people who has last few page empty, what we like to say is that, yes, I got you, okay? Because we're looking for how bad you are, okay? So that's why I mentioned that before. It's not about you able or not able to do it. Between you empty and you write something, there's a lot of things happening in between. You need to adjust these issues, okay? And you know the technique already. Deal with this technique. Every time you make a mistake, understand which reason it make this mistake. And like, for example, hidden information, I don't like to reading. So next time, beware of this. I'm very easy to fall into this trap, okay? So this is why you make a mistake. Everything has a reason. So give you basic two examples. For example, the first one, nothing to read. This is a typical example of distraction. By looking at this, solving for XY, everyone knows that it's simultaneous equation, yeah? When do we learn simultaneous equation? Year 7, year 8, year 9, substitution, elimination, right? But on top of that, they add a layer and layer of difficulty. So the examiner add 2 layers of difficulty. For example, I put it inside the log. And on top of that, I give you 2 log with different base. So that's why you need to recognize 2 log, the first layer, you need to break it first before you think about how to attempt the questions. So the first layer, different base, so I make it same base. And then once I got the same base log, I want to find the XY inside the log, combine, and then transform. And now you go back to year 9 level. This is what they like to use, distraction. And the second one is the information overload. You can see these 2 questions. You can read that, yeah? So is it a cubic function, has a differential graph, cross that, maximum, differentiable 10. You say, what is talking about? The first time you read this, you don't understand. So instead of writing that, a whole things together, write down a sentence. A cubic function has a graph of fx. You may say, I still lost. So a cubic function, okay, a cubic function. Then it's called fx. Then This is what happened. It's actually very easy when you do it this way. It's your methodology is wrong. It's not because you are stupid, okay? It's the way that you learn. You only focus on the content. You only think about only able to do and not able to do. You need to look into those kind of information. So that's why in exam, okay, in MM and Spec, this year instead of 3 SEC, you should have 2 SEC only. So SEC 3, you should know that already. 417 instead, they go up. And 417 for the SEC 2, you go down. Yeah, but I'm talking about the actual exam. Or actually, let's point out this. A lot of students say that hey, I do not very well in my exam. What happened? What we're going to happen? SEC, of course, is important, but it's not very important though. Because SEC is comparing between school. Exam is your individual work, okay? It's because different school doing different set of exam. So some school, they make the exam quite hard. So at the end, they can kind of adjust the marks, yeah? Because this is one of the techniques they can use. SEC really not 2 matters, okay? It may affect 2 to 3 marks, 3 to 4 marks, okay? The main thing is exam. So if you want to do well, focus on the final exam because this is individual. This is you versus everyone doing MM in whole Victoria. Okay, so exam 1, 22%, yeah, you know that, and probably 10 to 11 questions, roughly 10 to 11 questions. And then the ratio every year is pretty much the same. Is you have around 5 easy, 4 moderate, and 2 hard, always. Yeah, and the hard one of the hard questions always appear at the end, the last one, and only worth 1 to 2 marks only. You won't have a massive marks. Not many people get 0 marks. Not many people get 45 above. Majority is the average, normal students, okay? Exam 2, 44%, majority. 20 multiple choice, around 10 is easy, okay? 8 moderate, 4 hard. And the extended response questions, yeah, always the sub questions for AB, question 1, ABC, easy. And then up until A, B, C, D, F, the F part is hard. Question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the question 5, the last questions is hard. But one more time, what is hard again is not about some concept is not in the textbook. They may mix 2 topics together or 3 topics together. They may use the concept, I mentioned that just now. So as long as you figure out what is the question asking and what information is the question really providing, you can able to handle the hard question. So next time you say, I don't know, okay, make sure you look into these 2 questions instead of starting to do random stuff. This is the first tips for the correct structure, your mindset, okay? Second tips, high efficiency revision skill. You want to start revisions probably tomorrow or Monday. You want to start revision, yeah? So how are you going to do for the revision part? What method you're going to apply for revisions, yeah? I will give you advice. Revision is actually very easy. Open up the textbook, the first 2 pages, you can able to do revision. Just look at the contact index page. And then once you look at the word, for example, cojectics, okay, what knowledge did I got in my mind about cojectics? Take a piece of paper, just write down in dot form. Every knowledge, everything you think of that 2 words, okay? Let's put a practice. That's why I asked you to prepare a pencil and pen, yeah? A pencil and a pen or a piece of paper. Let's say you're doing the topic called inverse function. If you're year 11, year 12, I give you 2 minutes. Can you able to write anything you can think of? And this is how you should do revisions. You should finish the whole subject in 2 to 3 hours for revision. Don't take it too long to do that, okay? Once you finish writing, then you flip through the page. And then whatever you write is list out on the page, or on your textbook, it's not on your paper. This is what happened in your brain. You don't have that concept. That's why if the question asks you about that concept, you can't pop up, you can't apply because you don't have that link. All right, 2 minutes. Let's try to start inverse. If you're year 10 below, you can start linear. Okay, you may say, what do I write? Okay, inverse, yeah, what do I write though? Just anything about inverse. For example, how to find inverse, swap xy. Yeah, they write it down, swap xy. And what's the relationship between original and inverse? How to find the domain of the inverse, yeah? Those kind of things. It should at least have 6 points or 7 points, at least. Write that down first. Anything you can think of. Two minutes. Don't take too long. You should be writing. Yeah. All right. So the key point, I just give you 1 minute, but I give you a few basic things. Yeah. Like inverse only exists in one-to-one. You say, oh, yeah. But you didn't write down, which means it didn't pop up. Okay. You may say, this is easy. I know. Yes, but this is the way to go. You need to pop up everything naturally. Okay. And then swap XY to make Y as the subjects. Yeah. And then like the domain and range of the inverse between original and inverse swap. And then reflecting on how do I sketch inverse, reflecting on Y equal to X axis. Yeah. And then the coordinate between origin inverse, you got AB and BA. Yeah. You may say, yeah, I know that. But I can tell you, if you know all these 5 points, you only need you to do an easy questions or moderate, not even moderate, an easy question. Because you know everyone know this. But if you don't know, that's the problems. Okay. But can you able to think about 3 more points? 3 more points. So it can help you to do the hard one. Because if the examiner want to write a hard question in inverse, they will not base on these 5. They will base on the next 3. Able to think about anything more? Yeah. You say, nah, I can't. That's why. That's the problem. So that's why flip through the notes. Yeah, especially my notes. I got all the highlight. Yeah. Then you say, oh, this is what I didn't do it. So that's why you can able to do it. Okay. The first one is the intersections between original and inverse will be the same coordinate. Why? Because it's on the Y equal to X axis. Yeah. The intersection between original and inverse will have the same XY. And the next one is to finding the intersections between original and inverse. Then instead of using the original equal to the inverse, we can use Y equal to X. This will help you to do the moderate one. But for the hard one, what do you mean by hard one? Which means less than 10% of the people in Victoria who are doing MF34 can able to answer. So the next 2 points, one of them is the hard one, yeah, is the trap that set up the examiner, because we know that most of you guys know the inverse will have the same XY coordinate or lining on Y equal to X axis. Then this is not 100% trustable. Some intersection between original and inverse is not locating on Y equal to X axis. Or the last one is, yeah, the gradient between the intersection point for the original and inverse. If they only touch each other once, the gradient at that point is 1. Okay, if the inverse and the original is touching each other once, only touching, then the gradient at that point is 1. So this is all the key concept. From easy, moderate to hard. As long as you got all pop up for this, then you can, every time you see an inverse questions, you can able to attempt. This is how you do revision. You don't need to keep doing questions. Some people say, I will do the checkpoint, or I will do a lot of past exam paper to do revisions. For example, this one inverse here has, just now I said 5, 6, 7, 8 concept in here. How many questions do you think you can able to do to cover up all this? Yeah, you won't do 8 questions to cover up this. You may do the first 20 questions. 18 of them is only the first 5. You keep repeating the same thing. So you can able to do revision, but it's not efficient. We're looking for high efficiency, your valuable time. You can spend time to do other stuff. So the high efficiency is take out the index, or especially my notes, because I already organized all this, yeah? Look at the index and write down every single concept that you don't know, okay? Every single thing that you don't know. Anything that pop up in your mind. And then once you write it down, you flip. Whatever missing is the gap that you don't have in your brain. Fill that up. Move on to the next one, 3 hours. You can finish the revision. 3 hours, okay? If this is year 10, then here we go. How to find gradient, 3 different ways, differences of like distance of 2 point, midpoint, parallel, and perpendicular. This is all you need to know for linear. All right, this is the second tips for how to do revisions, high efficiency.